Hey everyone, Soly the Scourge here, bringing you a Scourge Warlock build. Emphasis on the Scourge. You know, it's 2019 and cryptics out here still trying to put labels on people, telling them who they are and aren't. Maybe they'll get with the times, maybe they won't. But, anyways, enough with the intro. Today I'm bringing you the stacking DPS build. Now, right up front, I think there are two correct DPS builds for the Scourge Warlock, depending on which dungeons you're running. And I'll explain why. One build is meant for your run and gun type dungeons, your standard ETOS where you're fighting mob of enemy after mob of enemy after mob of enemy. And that's the stacking build. The other build is meant more for dungeons with lots of hallways, lots of doors, lots of things that basically destroy your stack for no reason because they just put the stuff in to slow the dungeon down, to make you waste your time, to make you waste your life playing the dungeon, or look at the scenery, one or the other. But I've seen all the scenery, so it's kind of a waste after the first couple of times. So this is the stacking build. Again, this is going to perform well in dungeons where you fight a lot of enemies in a row. It's not going to perform as well in dungeons where all your stacks drop off. So if you don't know what I'm talking about with stacks, we're going to look at the core mechanics here. You have soul sparks, and you can get up to 30 of them, and they passively increase your damage. At 30, you get 4.5% DPS, which is great, but they drop off out of combat. So again, those long hallways, those doors, they're going to make you lose your stacks of soul sparks. The goal is to obviously try to maintain full soul sparks as much as possible. We also have Soul Investiture. Grants 5% bonus to encounter damage for each stack you have. How do you get it? Well, we've got to go here to... Sorry, I went one over. Basically, anytime you summon a soul puppet, when you already have one active, you get Soul Investiture. And you can get up to 5 stacks. So again, you can get up to 5 stacks of this with this feat. That means you can get up to a bonus of 25% bonus encounter damage on top of your 4.5% soul spark bonus, which means in dungeons where you can keep your stacks and you can keep running from mob to mob, it's really, really good. In other dungeons, the Warlock is not so good, and again, I would recommend running a different build. You can see everything here. The copy and paste people. You can see everything here. You can copy and paste it, but you probably won't be able to get as much out of it unless you kind of listen to the follow through. So let's talk about building stacks now. You want to generate soul sparks. You have 2 opening lines to do this. One is with your daily power. Dailies grant 12 soul sparks on use. You have 6 base. Again, going back to this, it normalizes at 6, even if all your soul sparks drain out, you get to keep 6. So that shoots you up an extra 12. So an opening line on a trash mob, maybe you want to damage link them, and you're going to immediately jump from 6 to 18. Otherwise, you've got Brood of Hadar. I like using it. I don't like using a Cursed Souls. The cast time, just way too long to be sitting there doing it. This, even though it does give you a soul puppet to help build stacks, I prefer Brood, hands down. Again, most of the time you're probably damage linking so that you can set up AoE, because this isn't a very heavy AoE build. But your other alternative is Hellish Rebuke. Now, how to use Hellish Rebuke? Basically, the key with Hellish Rebuke is target selection. You want to hit multiple targets. And what I'm going to show you here, there's 4 training dummies, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, and you can see my soul spark meter. It's right to the left of my character. You can see it jumping up without me doing anything else. It's jumping up because all the DOT ticks are building soul sparks for me. It actually overbuilds by 6. So 4 targets should build 30 total, but you start with base 6, so you don't need it all. Now, I'm going to do 4 Hellish Rebukes on a single target dummy. 1, 2, 3, 4, and it's not as good, right? So the Soul Spark generation, not where you want it to be. Again, the key to building Soul Sparks is hitting multiple targets. which you should be doing anyways because it's going to spread your lesser curse. I have on All-Consuming Curse. At will powers now apply Lesser Curse to enemies hit. Lesser Curse, important feature. You have deal 10% more damage to targets afflicted with Lesser Curse. You have curse synergies going on. It's very important, so you should be spreading that around. I use All-Consuming Curse because it's more of a convenience thing. Because we're going to be ripping our curses off, right? So this is one of the ways you summon your soul puppets and you start building your stacks. Basically, on the curse consume, you lift up and control your target, and you spawn a soul puppet. So that gives you your initial one. Again, you need to have one soul puppet out, then you start building stacks of soul investiture. How else do you get it? Well, you get it on killing blows, right? So we have killing flames. When you kill your target, you get a soul puppet. So there's a high emphasis again on target selection. You want to make sure you're using your killing flames to actually kill something, because that's where you start getting the combo of using these two powers, Hater's Grasp and Killing Flames, to start building your stacks up. And because if you mess these powers up, you're going to lose your stacks. The stacks expire if you don't keep refreshing them, which means you have to keep making sure you hit a cursed target with Hater's Grasp and you get a kill with Killing Flames. To help you along with that, you have Dark Spiral Charge. It's a very strong at will, up to 210 magnitude if you have the spirals collected, which you get basically on kills and stuff. And also, it does generate soul sparks on its own, so while you have something like Eldritch Blast, which can generate soul sparks, Dark Spiral actually does generate soul sparks on itself. Here you see it tells you that Dark Spiral Aurora will generate one soul spark for each Dark Spiral used. So it's a good power. Even though it doesn't have the AP gain anymore and all that, I still think it's strong. Again, you might want to soften up an enemy for a killing blow with it. You also have Hellfire Ring. This is good. Basically, your encounters that don't have curse synergies and all that will curse targets. So when you first set this down, it will curse all targets it hits. The DOT part won't recurse them if you take the curses off, but it's still good enough. The damage over time. It's basically something you can do and leave while you work on the other things, while you work on building stacks. I like it. You got to be a little bit careful. You don't necessarily want this to be your opening move, because if there's a group of enemies in the distance, you put it down on the enemies run towards you or your group, and they run out of the ring. Your tank's not going to go then walk them all the way back into the ring. So basically you have to wait a little bit until the tanks decided, okay, this is where we're going to fight, then you set it down, and then it's just good damage and it's free curses. So a couple other things. You do have Soul Scorch. Again, I don't really believe in using Soul Scorch because it's a dip in damage. You actually lose your % bonus damage by spending them. Again, you can rebuild them, but it's just not great. I don't know how else to put it. Right, and there's feats to like try and build around it, but like Soul Scorch damage over time is increased by 10%. Okay, if we look at what that would be, well, it's 1 per soul spark spent. You can spend up to 18, I believe. You know what 10% of 18 is? It's 1.8, right? It's 1.8 magnitude. So it's just not good. I don't know how else to say it. Again, I believe in All-Consuming Curse. Dust to Dust, your damage is increased by 5%. I'm going to tell you some tweaks that you can do for solo play, some tweaks you can do for teleporting bosses, but I want to get through the other parts here. Again, I've already covered this. Your Lesser Curse, deal 10% more damage. This is your stack building mechanic with Soul Investiture. Your powers deal up to 20% more damage as your target's health diminish. This is good with Killing Flames. Again, you want to ensure that your Killing Flames blows actually kill something. And whenever your Soul Puppet attacks, your encounter cooldowns are reduced by half a second. So again, this is going to keep your encounter times going lower and lower, which is good, because you want to cast as many Killing Flames as Hater's Grasp as possible to keep refreshing your stacks and keep building them if you don't have them already. There's also a couple little tricks. There's Artificer's Persuasion, reduces it by 2 seconds when you use an artifact. There's the Alliance Battlehorn that came with the Siege and Neverwinter. 10-minute use, but it'll take your cooldowns down by 5 seconds, so you got a couple of tricks. Alright, so this is probably the more controversial thing. I will say No Pity, No Mercy is very good in solo play, because it grants you combat advantage. If you don't know, most characters are building up to 100,000 combat advantage, and if you're not taking advantage of that in solo play because you're using an augment, you're missing out on a decent chunk of damage. So this is very good in solo play. Dungeon setting, and there's 5 of you, and you can't figure out how to get normal combat advantage, well then your dungeon group's kind of failing already. You don't need to invest in this, in dungeons really. Again, because between 5 people, you should be able to figure out how to get combat advantage. Again, it's not having combat advantage is more of an issue of everybody using augments, which they are good. And the other thing to mention is you can actually still get combat advantage in solo play, because your soul puppet has the same, companion mechanics or whatever, where if you stand on the opposite end of your soul puppet, you will get combat advantage. So again, if you're doing solo play and you're not getting combat advantage, this is an option, and it will probably increase your DPS, because a lot of people have up to 100k combat advantage, and then if you're just not doing anything with 100k worth of stats, obviously your character is going to suffer a bit. The other thing is teleporting bosses, right? So the cooldown on Hellfire Ring's pretty long. You've got stuff to knock it down, like I said, that last feat I showed you when the Soul Puppet attacks, but it's pretty long. Like a boss like Rosnisi in T9, it teleports way too much for this to actually get all its full damage potential, so you might want to switch it out for something else. I don't like using Curse Bites in this build. The other build that I will put out is going to be a Curse Bites focus build, but it messes up your curse mechanics too much, and you really want to make sure you keep hitting the curse on Hater's Grasp. Vampiric Embrace, if your healer's not healing you. You've got some other options, just Fiery Bolt if you want to just get something out there quick. You've got other options, so if the boss is teleporting too much, you might want to take Hellfire Ring off. You can go to Soul Spark Recovery as well on a teleporting boss. The problem with the teleporting boss, and again, it depends how much it's moving, is sometimes your Soul Puppet will just run around the arena the whole time without it actually attacking anything, and then you're not really getting much out of this, because it only reduces cooldowns when the Soul Puppet attacks. So maybe you want to switch to this. That's up to you. But I think that's all the slight variations I would recommend. Again, there's going to be a separate build for Curse Bites, but I think this is a very good build. Again, it's very good in the dungeons where you're fighting lots and lots of enemies over time, and you can keep all your stacks, right? You can keep this 25% bonus, you can keep your other 4.5% bonus. So I'm going to talk about some of the other minor details to fill in. I'm not going to cover gear and everything. I've got half the right set. I've got one piece of Alabaster. It's only been a week here on Xbox. I'm still collecting stuff myself. So stats, I do Intelligence, magic damage bonus. Especially on this one, I do Recharge Speed, just because, again, it's about getting those encounters as much as possible. You also get Companion Influence out of Charisma. I know some people are doing Dexterity for crit severity. It's one of those things, the more crit severity you have, the less you get out of each individual point that you keep adding to it. The game's trended to where Vorpal's very good, and crit severity in general is very good because they remove so many other outside sources. But that stuff will creep back in. I don't know. The downscaling, crit severity is not so high, but I think it's better to just work on your other stacking bonuses, at least on this build. Boons, they're kind of whatever. I take power, hit points, a little bit of everything. I've got Deathly Rage as my main one. Combat advantage, increased damage and bonus damage. And it's chance on kill, but you should be killing stuff. If you want to swap to a separate boss one, you can. The other thing, my character is a Dragonborn. I will say that the Dragonborns, you know, they said metallic. I've been metallic for years, but they said they're going to put another way in game, whether or not it's just a new lockbox that has it, to get more people metallic Dragonborn, because, you know, it's popular. So if you buy it now, you're probably going to be paying an overprice for it out of the legendary pack. Otherwise, regular Dragonborn's fine. Otherwise, I'd recommend Tiefling. Probably is the best free race. Again, you know, in the past, you wouldn't want to. You had so much bonus damage when an enemy's health was low that adding more to it wasn't that great. But here, you really, really want to make sure your killing flames actually kill targets so you get the bonus effect. So I think Tiefling is probably the best free race. You know, whether or not that stands true, you know, they could put in a new race. They could add an extra bonus to human. I think, I haven't checked lately, but, you know, human had like 2 bonus powers when all the other ones had 3. So they said they were going to add a third one to human, and I don't think they ever got around to it yet. So things could change, but that's where I stand on that kind of stuff. I'll probably do a separate gear, companion, all that kind of stuff. You know, I'm running an augment. I've just got a normal deep crow here because they were cheap on the trade bars while I break out my other companions. But I'll probably do that stuff in a separate video. So I hope this helps you guys. Again, I think this is about the best you can do in dungeons where you fight a lot of enemies over and over and over again, and you're not being slowed down by hallways and doors. I'm going to bring out a Curse Bites build maybe next week, and then I'll probably, after I collect all the gear myself, all the companions myself, rank it all up, you know, do the new dungeon, get the new artifacts, you know, that stuff will take time. After I do all that, maybe I'll bring out all the, you know, the separate, you know, trinket type stuff for you guys. But anyways, I hope this was in depth enough. I hope it showed you the mechanics, you know, the target selection, how to build stacks, how to keep stacks, that sort of stuff. So thank you for watching.